Hello, everyone. We now continue with the fifth Mishnah in Perek of Pirkei Avot. Mishnah says like this: Asara nisim na'asu lavotenu b'Beit HaMikdash. 10 miracles were done for our forefathers in the Beit HaMikdash, the temple. First one, Lo hipila isha mereach besar hakodesh. A woman never fell, she never miscarried, because of the smell of meat which was sanctified, designated for certain people to eat. A little background on this one you have to know is that there's an interesting halakha that a woman who's pregnant, if she walks by cooked food that she smells and she has an intense craving for it, we insist on her eating the food, even if it's forbidden to her, because we are concerned that there might be damage to her fetus, which could put their lives at risk. And pikuach nefesh, the risk, in order to save a life, we push off any prohibitions, except for 3. But we generally push off prohibitions to save a life, and so she's allowed to eat. The miracle over here is that a woman who's in the Beit HaMikdash, with all that smell of meat around, she never got an intense craving for it, so that it never became an issue. The second one, v'lo hisriach b'sar hakodesh me'olam. The meats that were used, that were cooked and had to be eaten in the Beit HaMikdash, right? B'sar HaKodesh, they were designated specifically from the korbanot, from the sacrifices that had to be eaten, never became, hisriach means to become rotten, to become smelly, never became bad. And the commentators explain certain korbanot had to be eaten, could be eaten over 2 days, and even in the hot summer days, when usually the food will rot quicker, it didn't happen in the Beit HaMikdash. That was the second miracle. V'lo nira zvuv b'veit hamit b'chayim. And a fly was never seen in the slaughterhouse of the Beit HaMikdash. The slaughterhouse, the area where they killed the animal and they prepared the body parts of the animal that had to be given as part of the sacrifice. Of course, generally, dead animal, you're going to find a lot of flies around there. That never happened in the Beit HaMikdash. That was the third miracle. V'lo era keri lekohen gadol b'yom kippurim. And the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur never had a nocturnal emission which would make him tameh, and he would not be able to perform the avodah. That was another miracle. V'lo kibu gishamim eish shel atzei ha'ma'aracha. The fifth miracle was that rain never extinguished the fire that was on the wood that was arranged on the Mizbeach. Atzei ha'maracha means the arranged wood, arranged branches, that was on the Mizbeach, which was the Mizbeach HaChitzon. The outer Mizbeach had a fire on it, and even though it was outside, there was no roof covering it, rain that came never extinguished the fire. V'lo natzcha haruach et amud ha'ashan. The wind never overwhelmed or blew away the pillar of smoke that came from the Mizbeach. The smoke that came up was direct. It was in a straight line and went straight up to heavens. And even though, of course, it was windy, again, we're talking about the outer Mizbeach, which was subject to weather conditions. The miracle was that it never affected the pillar of smoke. The seventh miracle that the Mishnah brings down is v'lo nimtza psul ba'omer u'vishtei halechem u'velechem hapanim. There was never found anything wrong. Psul means something which is wrong, and it would invalidate this thing from being offered in the Beit HaMikdash. Ba'omer, in the Korban HaOmer, the Korban HaOmer was the barley that was brought on Tet Zayin Nisan, on the 16th day of Nisan, the second day of Pesach, and it had a very specific time, so that if there was something wrong with it, you wouldn't be able to bring it later. Same thing with the Shtei Halechem, the 2 loaves of bread. This was brought from special wheat that was cut and baked specifically to be brought on Chag HaShavuot. Here also, if something happened to it in the process, you wouldn't be able to correct it. If it got invalidated in the process, it wouldn't have been able to be corrected, and you cannot have compensated or made it up. And with lechem hapanim was the weekly bread, the bread that was placed on the shulchan in the Beit HaMikdash, and it was replaced weekly. And the whole week, even though the bread was sitting out there, it never went bad. The fact that there were never problems with any of these 3 things is considered a miracle. That's number 7 in our Mishnah. Number 8, omdim tzifufim u'mishtachavim revachim. In the Beit HaMikdash, those who were standing were tzivufim. Tzivufim means it was dense, very packed solid. So many people in the Beit HaMikdash, barely any room to move. Yet, umishtachavim uruvachim, and when they bowed down, there was enough space. There was enough space for them to bow down with plenty of space in between them. And that was part of the miracle, that even though when they were standing, it was all bunched together, there was enough space for them to bow down. Number 9, v'lo hizik nachash ve'akrav b'Yerushalayim me'olam. That a snake or serpent never damaged, hizik is to damage, the snake or serpent never damaged in Yerushalayim ever. So even though there were many of those animals in Yerushalayim, they never damaged anybody. Finally, number 10, v'lo amar adam l'chavero, tzali hamakom she'alim b'Yerushalayim. A person never said to his friend, tzali hamakom, it's painful for me here. There's not enough space that I will sleep. Alim, that I will sleep b'Yerushalayim, here in Yerushalayim. Some of the commentators are of the opinion that this refers specifically to those who made Aliyah L'Rega, who went to Yerushalayim during the Regalim. And because there were so many people, you would think that it wouldn't be comfortable to stay in Yerushalayim. So that was the 10th miracle that this never happened. Everybody who showed up, there was always room and space to be comfortable in Yerushalayim. One observation to make on this Mishnah before we go on is that Perkei Avot is generally about human perfection, how we can better ourselves as human beings. It's interesting to think about why the Mishnah about the 10 miracles in the Beit HaMikdash would be included in Perkei Avot. Something to think about. Let us continue with Mishnah Vav. Asara divarim nivru be'erev Shabbat bein hashmashot. 10 things were created on Erev Shabbat, right before Shabbat. Bein hashmashot means right before the time of that Shabbat started, right? Sunset. These are the 10 things. Pi haaretz, the mouth of the earth. That refers to the opening of the earth at the time of Korach, when it swallowed up Korach and his family. Pi habe'er, the mouth of the well, meaning the miraculous well of Miriam that supported Bnei Israel in the Midbar. Pi ha'aton, the mouth of the donkey, referring to the donkey that spoke in the event of Bilam, in the story with Bilam. V'ha'keshet, the rainbow, referring to the rainbow that served as as an oath, as a sign in the times at the time after the Mabul with Noach. Ve'haman, man, of course, the food that sustained Bnei Israel, the special food that sustained Bnei Israel in the desert. V'hamateh, the staff that Moshe Rabbeinu used when he brought about the miracles in Mitzrayim and beyond. V'hashamir, the special animal that was used to break the stones to build the Beit HaMikdash, because they were not allowed to use metal to break open the stones. V'haketav, the letters, the font. Okay, some commentators say it's the tzurat ha'otiyot, the form of the letters, the font that was used in the luchot. V'hamechtav is the actual writing, the writing of the luchot, that it was formed in a way, right? We know it was miraculous that any way, any angle that people looked at it, people could read it, it could be seen. V'haluchot, and then the luchot themselves, what they were fashioned from, what they were made from, was also made Erev Shabbat, right before Shabbat came in that first week of creation. V'yesh omrim, and some people add the following, that these were also made on Erev Shabbat, bein hashmashot, going back to the time of Bereshit. Af hamazikin, even the damaging forces. Now, there are different interpretations of what these damaging forces are. Some commentators explain that they refer to some type of non-physical entities, shedim, which loosely translated as demons, but it's more complicated than that. Other commentators explain that this refers to something which is not physical, perhaps psychological. Some interpret it as a metaphor for something else. But that's the term mazikin, which literally means damaging forces. Ukvurato shel Moshe, the burial place of Moshe Rabbeinu. Ve'elo shel Avraham Avinu, the ram of Avraham Avinu, referring, of course, to the ram that was stuck in the bushes right when the Akedah occurred, when God told Avraham not to kill Yitzchak, and the ram was there for him to offer as a sacrifice. V'yesh omrim, and finally, some say, af tzvat bitzvat asuya. even the pliers that pliers are made with. Commentators explain that pliers, metal pliers, are made being formed over fire with other pliers. So the question, of course, is who made the first pliers? How were the first pliers made? So according to this opinion, the first pliers are actually made by God during Bereshit, at this time in Erev Shabbat, Bein Hashmashot, in order to enable human beings to be able to function and make their own pliers. Again, here we have an interesting Mishnah which seems not to have any direct impact on human ethical perfection, and yet here it's included in Perkei Avot. And again, here is an interesting question for us to think about. Perhaps we can come back to this at some other time, why it's included in Perkei Avot.